The air in the courtroom was heavy, nearly smothering. The seats were full, but no one ventured to breathe heavily. Reporters grasped notepads, cameras at the ready, like armed guns waiting to snap a photo of the tempest everyone knew was brewing. Behind the gleaming wood partitions, beneath the unforgiving white lights, the once close Brown family was going to shatter, publicly, irreparably. And then, Christine Brown got up. She didn't simply stand up from her seat, she stood up after years of silence, from the burden of being dismissed, overlooked, and underestimated. With shaking hands and a fire within her eyes, she approached the witness stand. Her voice trembled, not from weakness, but from something more, something primal, something that only a mother would feel when her child had been taken. "He took my child," she shrieked, pointing unmistakably at Garrison. The words hit the courtroom like a clap of thunder. A cry of shock burst from the gallery. One bailiff reflexively moved forward, not sure if he was to intervene or shield. The judge raised an eyebrow, already raising the gavel. "I want my son back," she shouted once more, her voice echoing off the walls of the courtroom like a woman in a nightmare. Garrison Brown didn't budge, didn't blink. He sat hard and still at the defense table, arms crossed over his chest, a look of impassivity on his face. A warning was probably whispered in his ear by his lawyer, but the cameras had already recorded the scene, Christine pointing the finger of accusation. Garrison stoic-faced in return. War lines were drawn. The judge banged his gavel, his booming voice over the din. Order in the court. The ensuing silence was not peaceful. It was the kind that hums in your ears, the kind that occurs after a bomb detonates. Christine was escorted to the stand. She appeared whiter than normal, her eyes slightly puffy from crying. But she stood like a soldier, hurt but refusing to back down. She clutched the sides of the wooden witness stand as if she was preparing for an earthquake. She didn't blink. She didn't smile. She didn't glance at the gallery. Only him. "This is not about a disagreement," she stated, her tone stronger now. "This is about my child being taken from me without my permission, without warning, without compassion." She took a deep breath to steady herself, the quiet that followed pulling tight like a rubber band, ready to snap. Then she went on. "Garrison was like family, played with Mykel, ate at my table, had his birthdays with us. I raised him as one of my own. And then he took him and my child and disappeared for 3 days." She glanced toward the jury. 3 days of having no idea where Mykel was, of calling hospitals, friends, police stations. Gone. My baby gone. One juror visibly swallowed. Another shook her head slightly, as if envisioning her own child abducted. Christine reached into her purse and pulled out a tiny photo, a snapshot of her and Mykel at a pumpkin farm. She didn't say a word as she held it aloft, simply let the picture hang in the air like a specter. "That was the last photo we took together before he went missing." The courtroom remained silent, the air stilled. One of the younger reporters silently dabbed a tear away. "I trusted Garrison. I welcomed him into my home, and as a return gift, he took my son out of state to Arizona, without so much as a word to me." She breathed in. "He dropped him off at Robyn's house." There it was. The name. Robyn. The courtroom buzzed again, murmuring like parched leaves blown about. Everybody in the Sister Wives universe understood what that signified. Christine had been viewed for a long time as the woman who broke free from Kody and Robyn's poisonous grasp. And now, Robyn was at the middle of trouble yet again. This time supposedly hiding a kidnapped child. Not perfect, either, Christine said, looking down at Garrison once more. "But his mother. I have custody. I am the one who remained, who fed him, bathed him, put him to bed with nightmares. Not you." She pointed once more, her finger trembling with fury. "You had no right to remove him from me." The judge leaned over. "Mrs. Brown, are you testifying the defendant took your son out of your custody and traveled across state lines with no lawful documents or reason for emergency?" "Yes, Your Honor," Christine replied quickly. "No permission. No order of court. Just disappeared." The judge nodded. writing a few lines on his pad. The seriousness of the case was no longer in doubt. At the defense table, Garrison's attorney finally rose to his feet. "Repeat, Your Honor. The term kidnapping does suggest ill intent. My client was acting in the best interest of the child." But the judge brushed him off. "Save it for cross-examination." Christine again fixed the jury with a stern stare, and her tone mellowed. "Mykel's only 7. He didn't know what was going on. He told me later that Garrison explained they were going on a secret mission. He thought it was a game." Her voice cracked for the first time. She paused, eyes closed, struggling to hold back tears. "He wept when he understood that I wasn't arriving. He asked, 'Why didn't you bring me home, Mommy?'" A reporter in the rear let out a sigh. The courtroom had officially transitioned from legal thriller to emotional destruction. "And that," Christine continued, "is something that I will never be able to forgive." The judge nodded, rolling back in his chair and looking out at the courtroom. Every person there, the stenographer, the security guard near the door, was fixed on Christine. It wasn't what she said, it was what lay behind. The depth, the anguish, the raw fear of a mother who almost lost her child. Christine descended from the stand in slow motion, heels clicking softly on hardwood beneath them, ringing out in a room still locked in shock. She sat back down beside her attorney, running the moisture-dampened edge of Mykel's photo along her thumb. Her eyes flashed over Garrison's briefly. As she sat, for one fleeting moment, there was no fury born, no blaze, only sorrow, betrayal. Then she looked away. In that moment, the courtroom was not a space for justice. It was the wreckage of a broken family. A bailiff held out a folder containing early case summaries to the judge. He nodded and looked at the clock. The trial was not near its end. But already, the truth was seeping out, and the entire Brown legacy was sitting on the stand with it. The courtroom lights appeared more unforgiving today, as if they had also become judgmental. Christine's evidence had left the room aghast. Even the most dubious reporters whispered among themselves. Could Mykel have been taken by Garrison, and why? All eyes were now on the defense table. Garrison Brown remained motionless for a second, teeth ground together, fists clenched into tight knots in his lap. The carefree, smiling son America had come to know in early seasons of Sister Wives was gone, replaced by a man, steel-tempered by distance, loss, and years of repressed anger. His attorney rose. "Your Honor, the defense requests that Garrison Brown be called to the witness stand." A bailiff waved his hand, and Garrison slowly rose. Intentionally, he buttoned his coat, not ritualistically, but as armor. He wasn't merely walking to the stand. He was marching into combat. He swore, his voice did not tremble. "Please state your name for the record." The lawyer started. "Robert Garrison Brown. And your connection to the plaintiff?" She's my dad's ex-wife." There was a pause. "And?" "Mykel's mom." There was a hum in the gallery, some sympathy, some curiosity, and lots of unfinished family drama fans had watched for years. Christine wasn't Gandhi's birth mom, but she'd raised him. Now they were adversaries, sitting across a battlefield of law. The defense attorney sat forward. "Garrison, let's cut right to the chase. Did you abduct Mykel Brown without permission from his mother?" Garrison paused. "Then yes." The courtroom gasped again, but this time Garrison raised a hand. "But I didn't abduct him," he said hastily. "I protected him." Christine rolled her eyes in derision, shaking her head silently, but speaking up not at all. "Tell me what you mean by protected," the lawyer requested. Garrison glanced over at the judge, then at the jurors. "When my brother died, when Gabe, everybody changed. I watched how this family handled loss. Or how they didn't. Everyone covered it up, went about as if everything was fine." He fixed his eyes on Christine. She picked up so quickly. She was laughing on the internet, celebrating new connections, establishing her freedom, and I was observing my little brother Mykel behave as if he didn't exist anymore. Christine's lawyer stood fast. "Objection, irrelevant emotional opinion." The judge dismissed him with a wave. "Overruled. Let him speak." Garrison leaned forward. "He said he was invisible. He said Christine was always on her phone with David, and she was never home. He'd call me, sobbing. Christine straightened. Her lips parted in a scream, but once more she remained silent. It was taking everything within her not to blow. I didn't plan it, Garrison went on. But one evening he pled with me. He said, "Please take me away from here. I don't want to stay anymore." So I did. You didn't call her? The lawyer asked. No, because she wouldn't have listened. She would have just blamed me. Or worse, Kody, or Robyn. Everyone's always blaming each other in this family. And the kids are the ones who get hurt. He faced the jury once more, gentler this time. I fed him. I allowed him to sleep in my apartment. I allowed him to discuss things he wouldn't mention in his own home. The defense attorney stepped forward. Did you ever hurt Mykel? Never. Did he ask to leave you? Never. The judge cut him off, writing notes. Mr. Brown, you confessed to transporting the child across state lines. Do you know what that means legally? Yes, Your Honor. Garrison replied quietly. But I didn't take him to harm Christine. I took him because I believed she'd forgotten how to be his mom. That was it. Christine stood up quickly. That is a lie, she cried. The judge banged his gavel. Sit down, Mrs. Brown. You'll get your turn. She did. But her eyes sparkled with tears. Garrison refused to meet her gaze now. The defense went on. Now let's discuss Christine's parenting. Why do you think she is incapable? I never told her she was unfit. Garrison answered guardedly. I said she was distracted, absent. She's constructing a new life. And that's wonderful for her. But she forgot that Mykel remains a Brown. He's not somebody in her Instagram feed. He's a child. He's grieving. He's confused. And I don't believe she gets that. The lawyer next mentioned Christine's relocation to Utah. Do you think the relocation removed Mykel from his siblings and caused emotional tension? Without a doubt. He was closer to Solomon and Ariella than anyone. Christine took him away from his siblings. Away from his routine. Away from everything he was familiar with. Did you consult Robyn about your decision to take Mykel? Garrison hesitated. No. You're sworn in? I didn't do it with her. But yes. I called her the night I took him. I asked if we could crash there. If we had to. She said yes. Another gasp went around the courtroom. Christine hid her face in her hands. So Robyn had known. The defense attorney nodded. So this wasn't a conspiracy. It was a desperate act. Exactly. I don't expect anyone here to believe I did the right thing. But I know that I didn't do it because of hate. I did it because no one else was listening. He glanced at the judge. You want to punish me? Fine. But at least now Mykel knows that someone stood up for him. The room was quiet once more. But the silence was different. It was not the silence of judgment or shock. This was the silence of humans attempting to understand a fractured family. The judge let out a sigh, rubbing his forehead. You may be seated. Garrison nodded, rebuttoned his coat, and sat down again. Christine would not glance his way. She sat rigidly straight ahead. The judge then addressed them in a hushed manner. This case is complicated. This is not some stranger kidnapping a child. This is a broken family. A boy in between. Emotions are raw, motivations blurred, but the law still holds. He addressed both sides. We will take our lunch recess and reconvene for review of electronic evidence. As the judge rose to her feet, the courtroom came slowly to life. Reporters poured out to get their midday scoop on the front pages. Online fans exploded with comments. Twitter, Reddit, and Facebook flared with hashtags. #Garrison on trial #Christine. Brown speaks #sister. Wives courtroom #justice. For Mykel #Robyn knew outside the courthouse. Protesters already were assembled. Some standing up for Christine. Others accusing her of leaving behind too many of the Brown kids in pursuit of freedom. Inside, Christine hugged Mykel's photo once more. And what about Garrison? He just sat staring at the table, tormented by a reality nobody could avoid. In a family like theirs, love wasn't ever easy, and loyalty had a price tag. When court reconvened that afternoon, the atmosphere was charged. Folks weren't witnessing only a court case. Their family war was reaching its boiling point. Christine Brown sat alert, arms tightly folded, jaw set. Her lawyers thumbed through a thick folder marked evidence. Exhibit C. Garrison sat unmoving, posture stiff, eyes flicking to the ground. But the name now heaviest in the room wasn't his. It was Robyn Brown. She wasn't in the courtroom. She hadn't shown up for a single day of the trial. But today her online fingerprints were set to be revealed. Christine's attorney rose to her feet, waving a typed copy of text messages aloft. Your Honor, the plaintiff moves to introduce a series of text messages gleaned from the defendant's phone. Exchange between Garrison Brown and Robyn Brown. Over the 48 hours preceding and during the purported kidnapping of Mykel Brown. The judge's eyebrow went up. Has the defense had a chance to look at these? They have, Your Honor. Authenticity verified. The judge inclined his head. Proceed. The lawyer breathed slowly and started reading out. Robyn, does Christine still brush off Mykel's sorrow? Garrison? Yeah, she's away every other weekend now. Always in Utah. He wanted to come with me again. Robyn, take him along. Bring him here. He will be safer with us. Garrison? No legal things though. She will go crazy. Robyn, it's not kidnapping if he wants to leave. Sometimes a mother forfeits her rights emotionally before legally. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Christine blinked slowly, her eyes hollow. The lawyer continued. Robyn, I've already made up a room for him. Extra pillows just in case. Solomon can share his Nintendo. He'll be happy here. That line landed like a grenade. The audience inside the courtroom and across the internet exploded. Objection. Garrison's lawyer stood up suddenly. These are casual discussions. Opinions, they cannot establish criminal intent. The judge held up his hand. They can if they indicate premeditation and complicity. Overruled. Christine leaned forward, her voice a fractured whisper. She knew. She plotted it. She created a room for my son. The next piece of evidence was even more damning. A screenshot of a FaceTime call log. A nearly 40-minute video chat between Garrison and Robyn, beginning just hours before Mykel was taken from Christine's home. The prosecution continued, now displaying the messages on the large courtroom monitor. The gallery strained to read them as they appeared line by line. Garrison? If she calls the police, I'm screwed. Robyn, I'll speak to Kody. We'll make it right. Just bring him here. Christine rose to her feet. Your Honor, if I might have a word. The judge paused, then nodded. Briefly, please. She moved to the center of the court, her heels clicking on the shiny floor, her face as white as alabaster. The flame that had burned there before had dissipated, but only temporarily. Now it was frozen, controlled, deadly. I see what this was now, she said softly. This was not about Mykel's safety. This was not about grief. This was about punishment. About control. About Robyn and Kody never forgiving me for leaving. She raised the photograph again. Mykel in his Halloween costume. They attempted to take my son and cover it in good intentions. Good intentions do not leave a mother weeping in her driveway. Good intentions do not equate to text messages that say, she forfeited her rights. Emotionally, that is not motherhood. That is manipulation. Garrison again looked down. This time his eyes filled with tears. I should have known better, Christine continued, her voice breaking. But I figured, even if Kody despised me, even if Robyn avoided me, at least Garrison, at least he still loved me. I was mistaken. Her attorney coaxed her back into her seat. The courtroom stood in stunned silence. Then the next surprise. Christine's attorneys produced audio tapes of a discussion Mykel had with his court-appointed counselor following the event. The judge permitted a redacted summary to be read into the record for the jury. I didn't know where I was going. Garrison said it was a secret rescue. I thought mommy was coming later. But we didn't call her. I cried the first night because I missed my mom. Silence. Even the court reporter paused for a moment to type. Christine looked away from the screen, her hand over her mouth. It was one thing to listen to attorneys argue technicalities. It was another to listen to the bewildered voice of a little boy, a child who'd been caught in the middle of a family dispute turned legal debacle. The judge addressed the defense. Do you want to reply? Garrison's lawyer rose, visibly shaken but firm. We agree that the messages did exist. We deny not that they were sent. But we insist that Garrison lacked criminal intent. His actions may have been misguided. Yes, but by emotional concern for a child, not malice or conspiracy. Christine's attorney jumped in quickly. Intent does not negate effect. This was planned, intentional and reckless. The defendant traveled across state lines with a child. Robyn Brown is not on trial today. Perhaps, but the facts indicate she was involved. Garrison Brown did not act single-handedly. The judge held up a hand. That finding on complicity will be made in post-trial probes. But harm had been done. In one afternoon, a secret alliance had been laid bare. Garrison and Robyn had, through messages and actions, worked together to remove a child from his mother without consent. Whether or not they called it kidnapping, the court now had hard proof of premeditated interference. Kody Brown's name, notably, appeared in just one line. Robyn Kody agrees we're doing what's right. He says Christine's too distracted to care anymore. Though only one sentence, it hung over the patriarch's silence during the ordeal. Kody had declined to testify, citing emotional distress. Outside the courthouse, public opinion started to splinter. Some fans posted messages of support for Garrison, referring to him as a protector and accusing Christine of pursuing the spotlight. Others were calling for Christine, calling Robyn and Kody master manipulators, and calling for legal charges for emotional abuse. News sites and podcasts joined in on the frenzy. Headlines appeared on all platforms. Breaking: Robyn Brown's hidden texts expose Christine plot. Garrison Brown's breakdown in court. I thought I was saving him, sister-wives family civil war. Custody, betrayal, and blowing evidence. But within the courtroom, one fact remained constant. Christine's child had been taken by individuals she once considered family, with assistance from those she once cared for. And no apology, no explanation, could take that back. The courtroom was more weighed down than it had been the entire week, as if the walls themselves were buckling under the weight of the family secrets that had been revealed within them. No one shifted. No one breathed. Even the stenographer's key clacking had ceased. The judge sat silent, rereading his last thoughts. His brow was creased, his fingers interlaced under his chin. The gavel rested still on his desk, waiting, along with the rest of them, for what would follow. Christine Brown sat motionless. Her fists were clenched so tightly in her lap that her knuckles were white. Her eyes were bloodshot, her face unreadable. She hadn't wept again. Not yet. But it was obvious the only thing keeping her together was the knowledge that her son was safe at last, standing just beyond the courtroom doors with a court officer. Garrison looked straight in front of him, his expression empty. If he still had any emotion, it was too far down to be visible. Even the media gallery, normally abuzz with the sound of low comment and murmurs, was quiet. Dozens of cameras were trained on the judge, the lawyers, the defendant. They were expecting a sensational flair. But what they were going to receive was something much more human: accountability. And then at last, the judge leaned forward. His voice was flat, steady, and impossible to ignore. This court has considered all evidence that has been offered over the past 4 days. He started. We have heard from the plaintiff, Christine Brown, a legal custodial parent who produced compelling emotional, legal, and digital evidence on the removal of her son Mykel Brown by the defendant, Garrison Brown. Christine swallowed hard. We have also examined the defendant's testimony, which, although emotionally genuine, admitted to intentional taking away of the minor child without knowledge or legal consent of the plaintiff. The judge lifted his head. His eyes scanned the room like a lighthouse. We should also take into account Robyn Brown's supporting role, whose messages, albeit not to be tried today, indisputably encouraged, coordinated, and provided shelter in this episode. That case will be remanded to state investigators. Christine's head came up slightly at that line. The law in this state is plain, went on the judge. Any taking of a minor child out of a state without specific parental or judicial consent, no matter what the emotional motive, is custodial interference. Garrison closed his eyes. The judge held the official document in his hand. This court hereby finds the defendant, Garrison Brown, guilty of custodial interference in the 2nd degree. Sentencing to follow in a separate hearing. The gavel came down with a loud crack. Christine's breath froze in her throat. A flush swept over her cheeks. But she didn't cry. Not yet. She just sat there allowing the reality to wash over her. She had won, but it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like survival. The judge was not done. Immediately the court makes the following orders. He gazed at Garrison. You are prohibited from any contact with Mykel Brown until such time that a complete psychological evaluation has been done and passed by the Department of Family Services. You cannot call, text, email or visit him. Anything else is criminal contempt. Garrison nodded his head slowly, offering no protest. The judge looked at Christine. Custody is still with you. You are invited to, but not obligated to, permit future family counseling sessions if you find them to be in the best interest of the child. This court understands the intricacies involved with your family situation and will not insist upon reunification at this time. Christine closed her eyes and breathed. It was the first breath she'd been able to take without it hurting in days. The judge made one last announcement. Both sides can now make closing statements if they desire to do so. Christine's attorney leaned over and whispered, "Do you wish to say anything?" She rose without hesitation. The courtroom leaned forward, each and every one of them captivated. Christine moved to the middle of the room and stood facing the gallery, the judge, and at last, "Garrison, I never imagined this is where we'd end up," she began softly. "Not after everything we've survived. The cameras, the public scrutiny, the pressure to be perfect, and the pressure to pretend everything was okay when it wasn't." She paused, her voice growing stronger. "I know what people think of me, that I deserted the family, that I abandoned the so-called dream. And they're right, I did abandon. I abandoned to hold on to my peace, my children, and my self-respect." The room was quiet. Not even the judge broke her. "But I never abandoned Mykel. I never lost him as a son. Not ever." She turned to look at Garrison now. "You believed you were rescuing him, but he didn't need rescuing from me. He needed all of us to love him. What you did was not rescue. It was theft. Theft of trust, of safety, of childhood." Garrison raised his head, and Christine finally saw something shatter in him. A tear streaked down his cheek. "I don't hate you," she told them, shocking all of them. "I just don't recognize you anymore." She glanced over at the gallery, where the reporters held their collective breath for her words. "And to Robyn, wherever you may be, stop attempting to rewrite the family narrative to suit your own comfort. My kids are not pawns. They're not distractions. They're human beings, and they're owed better." A shiver ran through the room in tandem. Christine then spoke to the judge. "I thank this court for standing up for my son. And I beg of you, from now on, all of us, Brown family or not, begin prioritizing the kids over the destruction, because they're the ones paying for our messes." She dipped her head and sat down. The judge nodded with somber respect. "A strong statement, Mrs. Brown. Mr. Brown, would you care to respond?" Garrison rose, unsteady. "I don't know if I'm worthy of speaking, but I will." He glanced at Christine. "Sorry," he told her. "Not because I got busted. Not because I'm standing in court, but because I truly thought I was doing good, and I wasn't. I betrayed Mykel. I betrayed you. And I betrayed myself." He turned away. "I'll do whatever the court decides. I just hope he doesn't grow up to hate all of us." He lowered himself slowly into the chair, and for an instant, it wasn't a courtroom anymore. It was a funeral for what the Brown family had once been. The judge rose to his feet and pronounced, "Court is adjourned." As the gavel came down for the last time, Christine did not hurry out. She got up, smoothed her dress, and made her way deliberately to the hallway where Mykel waited. Behind her, the doors closed, and the reporters surged. The flashbulbs popped. Microphones were shoved hither and yon. But another word did not leave Christine's lips. She just clutched her son to her. And for the first time in weeks, she smiled. The courtroom was vacated now. The judge's bench was empty. The flag stood still. The wooden benches retained the echoes of gasps, whispers, and gavel thumps. But the people, the family, the commotion had vanished. There remained just one truth. Christine Brown had won the case. No one, however, departed without scars. Outside there were cameras, news trucks, and protesters that packed the courthouse. The headlines already went live. Christine wins custody battle. Garrison guilty of stealing her son. Robyn revealed, text messages prove her involvement. But beneath all the hype was a much more intimate tale, one that couldn't be told in 280 characters or a tabloid headline. This was the tale of betrayal, broken relationships, and the price of exiting the chaos. Christine and Mykel, a mother reunited. After the verdict, Christine did not go running for an interview or a triumph speech. She went straight to the hallway where Mykel stood, holding a court officer's hand. When she looked at him, all else disappeared. "My baby," she whispered, going down on her knees. Mykel wrapped his arms around her neck. "You came for me," he said. Christine held him tighter than ever. "I will always come for you." She held on for a long time. Later in the evening, she issued a brief statement to her supporters and fans. "I am so thankful the court has protected my son. This trial was never for revenge. It was for safety, truth, and pushing against emotional manipulation. No mom should ever have to fight this hard to be heard. I did it for Mykel. I did it for every child who feels invisible in a divided home." The post had been liked more than 1.3 million times within 12 hours. Christine and Mykel returned home to Utah quietly that week, where they started family healing work and trauma therapy sessions with counselors. Christine requested privacy, but supporters created artwork, ran online fundraisers, and swamped her social media with messages of encouragement. "We believe you, Christine. Mykel is blessed to have you. The world witnessed what you endured, and you did not back down." Garrison, alone with the consequences. Garrison did not comment to the press following the trial. He exited the courthouse in a side door, accompanied by legal personnel and family security. For the first time in his life as an adult, he didn't know where he fit. Kody hadn't been present. None of his brothers had issued a public statement. Even his biological mother, Janelle, remained silent. From inside sources, it turned out that Garrison had been residing in a friend's guest house. His phone was off. He'd canceled his podcast appearance, all his social media profiles, and TV interviews. What disturbed him most were not the court orders or the headlines. It was the moment that Christine locked eyes with him and declared, "You were never protecting him. You were punishing me." That line resided in his mind now. He started therapy. He made a personal apology to Christine through his lawyer. It wasn't taken, nor was it accepted yet, but it was genuine. "I thought I was repairing what my dad damaged," he explained in the statement. "But I went and damaged something else, something more, and I don't know how I might repair it." The erstwhile beloved son of sister wives had evolved into the poster child for misplaced loyalty, and it would be a long haul back if it was possible at all. Robyn, the invisible hand revealed as Christine languished in court. Robyn Brown remained mute, refusing to show up, refusing to testify. Her name, however, was everywhere. Her text messages, FaceTime calls, and her comment that Christine had emotionally forfeited her rights had gone viral. She was inundated with questions, criticism, and just plain anger by viewers on her social media. "Why would you scheme this? You took a step too far, Robyn. Where was your empathy?" Days later, Robyn finally spoke out in a taped video. Dressed in all black, perched on a beige sofa with an obviously vacant house behind her, she stated, "I never instructed Garrison to abduct anybody. I was only being supportive because I was concerned about Mykel's emotional state of mind. I messed up in how I was explaining things, but my intentions were pure." The internet didn't buy it. Fan pages dubbed her manipulator mom and the hashtag #Robyn. New trended on X, formerly Twitter, for 3 days straight. TLC executives made no official statement, but rumors swirled that Robyn's future on the show was being reconsidered. Some fans demanded her removal. Others demanded Christine be given her own spin-off. Christine, notably, refused to engage in the backlash. "Let the truth speak for itself," she told a reporter. "I'm done playing games." Kody, the ghost patriarch. And what about Kody Brown? The fellow who used to occupy the center of the Sister Wives universe? He never appeared in court, he never issued support, and he never issued a single statement regarding the case. Instead, he was spotted fleetingly in Las Vegas days later, attempting to remain low-key at a neighborhood gym. A TMZ reporter approached him. "Do you stand behind what Garrison and Robyn did?" Kody's response? A shrug and the words, "It's complicated. That was it. To many viewers, that shrug spoke volumes. Christine had stood in front of the court. Garrison had owned up. Even Robyn had attempted to spin the story. But Kody disappeared. As he had disappeared so many times before, leaving women and children to pick up the pieces. The family splits forever changed. The fallout spread throughout the entire Brown family. Janelle was reported to be devastated, but decided to stay quiet to prevent taking sides. Mary came out in support of Christine, sharing sometimes the hardest thing a mother can do is protect her peace. Christine did both. Peden stood by his mom, stating on TikTok, Garrison got caught up in something ugly. I love him, but what he did was wrong. TLC dropped a promo for a future special, Broken Bonds, the Christine Brown custody trial, airing this fall. Fans were left stunned and glued to every update. Christine's final message to the world. 1 week after the verdict, Christine uploaded a single video to her YouTube channel. It was titled simply, I fought for my son, and I'll never apologize for that. In the video, she looked straight into the camera and said to the individuals that said I was dramatic, emotional, or was making it up. You witnessed the truth. My child was abducted, but I recovered him. Not with screams, not with hate, but with truth and law. To the family I once referred to as mine, I love you still, but I will never make your silence greater than my child's wails ever again. And to Mykel, I vow you'll never have to question who's got your back. She trailed off in one line. I'm not a sister wife anymore. I'm a surviving mother. The screen went black. And the world watched. And wept.